have turned up suddenly from Russia. The first is Vladimir Putin has decorated Valery Boyarinev, and he's the Deputy Director of Russia's Federal Penitentiary Service, the FSIN. He's become a ranking, we have to say that word so carefully these days, a ranking Colonel General. You only have to look at him to see that he's a ranker of the First Order. And this comes only days after the FSIN announced Alexei Navalny's death. And he was the person who was apparently personally responsible for depriving Alexei Navalny of food when he was imprisoned until 2023, directly under his control. And so he is responsible for torture and prison administration and for incarcerating the opponents of President Putin. Among them, I'm afraid, is Ilya Yashin, who was also a friend, as he pointed out, of Boris Nemtsov, who was the person who was killed just outside the Kremlin. He says, I'm going to read it. He says, Alexei Navalny was my friend, so does Boris Nemtsov. We did a common cause and dedicated our lives to making Russia peaceful, free and happy. And now both my friends are dead. I feel a black emptiness inside, and of course I understand my own risks. I'm behind bars, my life is in Putin's hands, and it's in danger. I will continue to stick to my line. Standing over Boris's body in February 2015, I vowed to myself not to be afraid, not to give up, not to run. 9 years later, mourning Alexei, I can only repeat that oath. Brave stuff indeed. Today also, Evan Gershkovitch was brought out for an appeal hearing, which was denied, so he's back in prison until at least March the 30th. So scotching any suggestions that Putin was having a trickle of mercy going through his frozen soul. There is no mercy there. It may not have been Putin. It may have been a body double anyway. It may just have been a projection, an AI manifestation of his former appearance before he retired to the freezer and snuggled up to a bag of frozen peas. Yes, medley. And I don't know. I don't know what we have to say about that, really, or what can be said about all that. Meanwhile, Lyudmila Navalnaya has put out a video, a very courageous woman herself, a very noble woman standing begging for her son's body. What more can be said? Except that the thug is indifferent to almost everything. And people are now beginning to speak out about the nature of the prison where Alexei Navalny died, this place in the Arctic Circle, this Polar Wolf Prison Correctional Facility number 3, IK3. It's notorious. The administration was horrific. And the people there are now saying the cause of death is being established. Now they're saying it's going to take 2 weeks to establish the cause of death. Initially, a detached blood clot, then a fall, then sudden unexplained death or whatever it was. And it's it is extraordinary. Russian propaganda. There are former prisoners who say, they killed him. They killed him. One former IK3 inmate said, when I read that he allegedly died of a blood clot, I said to my boys, son of a bitch, look, they killed him. SUS, strict conditions of detention. The entire unit apparently is covered in fungus, including the corridor. Mushrooms grow from the floor. There are sections of IK3 reserved for prisoners under restrictions even harsher than SUS. This includes a section containing single cell type rooms where prisoners are sent as punishment for persistent violations of prison regulations. And Navalny was in one of those for quite a lengthy period of time. These things are known as prisons within prisons. And the EPKT system. And it's so isolated there that even prisoners don't know who's being held there. Prisoners being held under such strict conditions of detention or in EPKT can then be put into even further punitive isolation, the SHIZO, for 15 days. But Navalny was in one of these detention cells for 200 days or so. It's always torture. Navalny was in a isolation cell for 27 times over the course of his imprisonment. He was allowed a one walk daily, which takes place in small exercise yards with a net over the top, cameras overlooking the yards. And it must have been horrific for somebody who was civilized to be in such a place of inhumanity. He might as well have been in a fridge. But then, of course, Mr. Putin knows all about that. I think we should finish with a look at Lyudmila Navalnaya's plea to Mr. Putin, which finishes with a period of silence.
За моей спиной находится колония К3 «Полярный волк», где 16 февраля погиб мой сын, Алексей Навальный. 5-й день я не могу увидеть его, мне не выдают его тело, и мне даже не говорят, где он находится. Я обращаюсь к вам, Владимир Путин. Решение вопроса зависит только от вас. Дайте мне, наконец, увидеть моего сына. Я требую незамедлительно выдать тело Алексея, чтобы я могла его по-человечески похоронить.